Hello, welcome back everyone that stayed on. Thank you for staying on. And for those that have just joined us, welcome to the second annual general meeting of the Nova Scotia College of Medical Imaging and Radiation Therapy Professionals. I now call this meeting to order. Good afternoon again. I'd like to begin, for those just joining us, by acknowledging that we are in the Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, and Passamaquoddy's peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1726. The treaties recognized the Mi'kmaq and Maliseet title and established the rules, which was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. So I'm Christy Gamache, the NSCMIRTP chair, and I'd like to welcome you all again. Once again, the college is conducting its AGM via live stream, and this is now expected to become the standard method of delivery. Registrants will be able to take part in this meeting through the question and voting functions of this GoToWebinar meeting or platform. Thank you for having chosen to participate in this important part of our governance. We've allocated 1 hour for this year's AGM, and we have structured this meeting to be as efficient as possible. I ask that you please keep your comments and questions concise, professional, and relevant to the subject being discussed. At the close of our AGM, we will then open the floor up to a question-answer period for any and all additional questions. You will have noticed that you've all been muted by the organizer, and only the panelists have webcam abilities. Participants wishing to submit a question may do so by typing into the question window to the right of your screen. Please make sure your last name appears at the beginning of your question. We recommend pre-typing your questions into a Word file and then just simply copying and pasting the question in just to avoid time delays. If you do have a long question that you were unable to pre-type, you may type in the word and submit incoming, so we know to pause for your full question. And finally, please note we won't be using the raise hand function during this meeting, and it will not be monitored. Should this live broadcast terminate for any reason, participants should close their browser and restart the broadcast using the same link you used initially. This is also the first step if you have any issues with your audio or the polling questions. Today's AGM will be recorded and made available to registrants that were unable to attend. Before moving forward with business meeting, I'd like to introduce the NSCMIRTP Board of Directors, myself, Christy Gamache, Chair, Rebecca Jessam, Vice Chair, Nancy Duggan, Secretary, Jason Shepard, Member at Large, Lisa Bonin, Member at Large, Kenny Zan, Member at Large, as well as our public members, Anne Mann, Hamad Mohiuddin, and Nick Burke. I'd also like to introduce our college staff, Julie Avery, our Executive Director and Registrar, Joanne Jones, our administrative staff, who is also acting as our moderator today, and Jacqueline Metzler. She is our recently hired Deputy Registrar. She is unable to make today's meeting due to previous commitment. She's actually on a plane at the moment, and she might try to log in if her connection allows, so that's good. So welcome to Jacqueline. Also present at today's meeting is Ryan Baxter from McGinnis Cooper, who is our legal representative today. We also have Manita Taylor from MNP joining us to present the audited financial statements. I'm not sure if Mitchell is on today, but if so, that's Mitchell Cody. He's also from MNP. So yeah, welcome to you all and thank you for joining us. I'd also like to acknowledge the contribution of past presidents of the NSAMRT as well as the NSSDMS who have joined us today. Present today, I'd like to recognize Karen Fader and Bert Langell. If I have missed any past president that is present today, please let us know through the question box so that we can recognize you. Last but not least, I'd like to recognize the valuable contributions of our many NSCMIRTP volunteers who work on various committees and work groups and projects, and without whom we would not be able to accomplish our initiatives. So thank you. Joanne, are there any additional past presidents present to recognize?
No questions or comments have come through.
Okay, perfect. We will be using a polling app today, which we used earlier this morning if you were here. We do have a test question to get us started, just to make sure everything's working on your guys' end. Joanne, can you please make the first poll live? Everyone, please answer the question and hit submit when it appears on your screen. If you're not able to vote, sometimes it's because you're in full screen mode, and just exit, hit escape and exit out of that, and then you might be able to vote. And this is a good reminder that only active NSCMIRTP registrants can vote. And unfortunately, this does not include our student members. So we'll just pause here for a few minutes until the poll is complete.
Okay, I think that might be it. I'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Amazing. Do we get to look at the results?
Yep.
Okay.
Ooh, summer.
Awesome. All right, thank you everyone for voting. Some of us today might also be attending in a group. If you are attending today's AGM as part of a group, which means there are 2 or more of you watching on a single login, please pick a person to do all the typing, the scrutineer, for your group now. And can that identified person please go ahead and type in the question area your full name, as well as the total number of voting college registrants that are present in your group. And we'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. Joanne, does it look like there's any groups present today?
No.
All right.
I'll let you know if anything comes through later.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll
sorry,
skip this.
I was too quick.
Awesome.
There is
There is a group. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
So for these groups, each time a poll goes live, we ask that the scrutineer not answer the poll directly, but instead type into the question box the number of yes votes and the number of no votes for your group. So it'll be a little bit more work for you, so sorry, but thank you. We now need to confirm that we have a quorum of registrants. Joanne, can you please make the next poll live? Perfect. This is also another good time to remind that the organizers and panelists, we aren't actually able to vote in the poll, so we'll have to type into the question box as well. And for us, it is the chat. And I'm going to forget, so that's okay.
Okay, I'm going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go.
Amazing. Do we have quorum?
Yes.
Amazing. All right, so the contents of the annual report were sent to registrants via an e-blast, as well as posted to the college website on May 11th. This report can also be found today in the handouts tab near the question box. It's like a little, for me, it's a little white document looking thing. But yeah, so the annual report is there for you to follow along. It provides all the reference material that you need for this meeting. Let's begin with the agenda, which is located on page 3 of the annual report. Just checking to see, do we have Jason online? No. All right, is there a mover to accept the agenda for the second annual general meeting?
Yep, I'm Kenny, and I move to accept the agenda for the second annual general meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenny. Is there a seconder to approve the agenda? Oh, you're on mute, Lisa, sorry. I know there's 2 buttons. I can relapse for this one. Thank you for seconding the motion. It is moved and seconded to approve the agenda of the second annual general meeting of the NSCMIRTP. Are there any corrections to the agenda? Please submit any corrections via the question function, and we will pause to see if there's any questions or additions to the agenda. And Lisa, if you want to play with your mic, you can go for it.
I think you're still on mute there.
No questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Joanne. It says beside you, you are also muted by the organizer. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
go for it.
I'm now unmuted.
Yeah,
There was
awesome.
a blank. I second the motion.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so there's no questions or additions. Thank you, Joanne. Can you please launch the next voting poll? So the question is to approve the agenda for the second annual general meeting. And remember, if you are having trouble voting, just hit escape and get out of full screen mode, or you're a panelist and you need to type into the chat box.
Okay, I'm going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go.
Amazing. Motion carried. All right, can I get a mover to accept the minutes of the first annual general meeting? You're also on mute, Katie, sorry.
There we go. I move to accept the minutes of the first annual general meeting.
Perfect, thank you. Is there a seconder?
It's Lisa. I move to second motion.
Amazing, thank you. It is moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the first annual general meeting. Are there any corrections or questions to the minutes? If so, please submit them into the question box. Any questions, Joanne?
No, no questions. I'll launch the poll.
Perfect, thank you. So the question is to approve the minutes of the first annual general meeting.
Okay, I'll close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Lovely, thank you. All right, motion carried. All right, 4.0 on the agenda, business arising from the minutes. Is there any discussion of business arising from the minutes? Any questions of last year's meeting? If so, please submit into the question box. And yeah, I am going at a little bit of a faster pace. 2 minutes is a really long pause. So yeah, so maybe if you do have like a fairly long question, just type in the word incoming first and hit send, and then type it out That way I don't want to miss anyone's questions. All right, is there any questions coming through?
No, nothing.
Okay, perfect. All right, we will move on. So I'll now invite Julie Avery, our Executive Director and Registrar, to provide a brief report on the past year and provide a glimpse of what you can expect this year. Julie?
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance today and welcome the chance to update registrants and the public on some highlights of the past year. First, if we look back to last year's AGM and the presented goals for 2021, we can see that we have actually been successful in reaching most of these. I will come back to governance for long-term viability in a moment, but in considering registrant engagement, this continues to be a challenge, especially as activities such as site visits are still on hold. In 2021, we did reach out through open virtual Q&A sessions, AGMs, newsletters, and survey. We are seeing signs of a better understanding of the college's role, with increased levels of practice advisory questions being received and a decrease in advocacy questions. And we continue to encourage registrants and the public to reach out anytime with their questions. For proactive partnering, this is a core lens that the college uses as an organization. Some examples from 2021 include the shared cost of the jurisprudence module developed with the New Brunswick regulator, drafting an agreement with Sonography Canada for the assessment of internationally educated DMS individuals, and also for the National Exam Development and Delivery. We worked with Fair Registration Practices Office to receive grants for developing programs to assist internationally educated in preparing to write the national exams, and we worked with private clinics in developing and approving reopening plans that met public health requirements. Promotion in 2021, due to our mandate of public protection, previous advocacy roles of NSCMIRTP were discontinued. The board also did a review of committee functions. As a result, both the Communication Committee and the Education Committee were discontinued, as their core work was no longer part of the college mandate and their remaining work was assumed by staff. Additionally, while Lunch and Learn funding was offered in 2021, moving forward, this funding will not be available in 2022. The college will continue to offer a plenary session in both the fall and spring of each year. Monies will be budgeted for professional speakers. These will be virtual events to allow for registrants from across the province to attend, and also to allow for a wider variety of speakers. Where possible, the presentations will be recorded for on-demand viewing on the college YouTube channel afterwards. Integration, for the most part, is complete. Branding and college naming has been applied. We expect there will still be occasions where NSCMIRT or NSSDMS branding appears, and these will be addressed as that occurs. We are now through the transitioning phase for licensing of sonographers, so they now must meet the education exam requirements of the college to be licensed. We've also held our inaugural elections in 2021, so board makeup now aligns with the requirements of our Act and regulations. Going back to governance and long-term viability, this was a focus for the college in 2021. The board did multiple education sessions on governance and responsibilities and managing effective meetings to support them in gaining the foundational knowledge and skills to provide effective governance. Additionally, the nomination committee developed processes and rubrics for the nominations and election process, which were approved by the board. The board recognized that the strategic plan no longer fits the needs of the college, and with the assistance of a facilitator, developed a new 3-year plan. This new strategic plan covers the board direction for 2022 through 2024. In developing the plan, the stakeholder input was sought through a survey conducted by the facilitator. Responses were received from registrants, the public, as well as other stakeholders. The new strategic plan focuses on 2 pillars: stakeholder awareness and effective governance. The board wants to concentrate on setting a strong foundation for the college, centering around sound governance and communication. Under each pillar, 2 central foci are identified: public relations and communication for the first, and committee and board effectiveness for the second. Even though the new plan officially covers 2022 through 2024, multiple initiatives from 2021 align with the new plan. This is especially true when looking at governance, which we'll see in a moment. For public awareness, the college has recognized we need assistance in creating effective communication strategies. We feel the public voice is very important, and for this reason reached out to include their feedback in the development of our strategic plan and ensure that the website had tabs specifically targeted to the public for them to easily find the information most pertinent to them. The content of the website still needs to be built out more and will be a goal through 2022. The principal foci for 2022 will be to work with the PR firm that has been hired to help in development of a communication plan, content for that plan, and do some targeted outreach to the public. We are currently in the exploration phase with the PR firm and expect that the first content will be ready in the fall of 2022. While public awareness is a main pillar for our strategic plan, the college recognizes communication with stakeholders includes our registrants. The college has a responsibility to have accessibility, timely, and accurate information for the registrants related to self-regulation. This will also be a sub-area of focus under this pillar. Registrants were asked to participate in engagement sessions to help inform the development of communication plans and messaging. If you're interested in helping to shape the PR plan with the public and registrants, please reach out. We are hoping to gather a couple more technologists for this working group. There are 2 projects underway to assist applicants in meeting practice standards. The first is a jurisprudence module, which will support registrants' awareness of legal requirements related to their practice. In 2021, the college hired a consultant to draft this module. This is now in review process and expected to roll out in late 2022 and be a tool to ensure that new applicants meet this standard. We also hired several consultants in 2021 to develop refresher programs in sonography and MRI and update the existing ones to radiological technology and nuclear medicine to align with the new competency profiles. They'll be used in 2 ways. First is to assist those who have not practiced in more than 5 years to regain currency and an ability to hold a license. And secondly, the academic component will be used for those who are internationally educated that would like to do additional prep for the national exam. As with current Nuc Med and RadTech refresher programs, we anticipate that all 4 of the new programs will be viewed by other regulators and approved as a method to regain licensing in other provinces as well. Much of the work done by the college in 2021 related to governance. As mentioned, the board did several education sessions with legal to understand the role and responsibilities of a board, as well as with a facilitator to improve the running of meetings. The election process was reviewed and updated to include a tool to ensure all candidates standing for election met minimum criteria. Succession planning was identified as a risk to the college. We need to ensure staffing of the board and the office is adequate and the transition and onboarding are done in an effective manner. A full review of onboarding processes and resources for board and committee members will be targeted area in 2023. The current focus on succession planning has been with staff succession. In 2021, a decision to hire a deputy registrar was made. This hire occurred in the spring of 2022 with Jacqueline Metzler joining the staff. Given the small staff, if the ED were unable to report to work, the board would have difficulty in managing the daily operations of the organization, as they are a policy board rather than an operations board. Creating this position helps to mitigate this risk. It is expected the deputy registrar will be able to cover off the ED registrar position in their absence to ensure basic operational functions are not disrupted. Other areas identified were a need to have an effective way of tracking, reviewing, and managing the workload of policy review. Policy management is a large task that many organizations struggle with. Ensuring policies remain current and accurately posted is a challenge. A tracking tool was developed in 2021 and is now in use. The tool links policies with any affiliated policies as forms, ensuring they are reviewed in unison and maintain alignment. It also allows for ready identification and distribution of policy workload by staff and policy committee, reducing and equalizing policy workload across the year. The board will only need to review those policies undergoing content revisions as opposed to grammar and spelling revisions. This process will also ensure once edited, they are updated and posted and old versions are pulled down. One last area that we are looking to for staff succession planning is guidebooks for each staff position. These books will lay out the principal responsibilities of the role and description of how to meet these responsibilities. This will help reduce knowledge loss when staff members leave and assist new staff in learning the role. The goal is to complete these by the end of 2022 with an annual review to maintain currency. Staffing in 2021 remained constant, with the ED working 40 hours, the admin assistant working 15, and the summer student being hired for 14 weeks at 30 hours per week. However, in 2022, while the admin assistant and summer student's position remained constant, the executive director position had been reduced to 30 hours per week, while the deputy registrar position is a new position at 15 hours per week. Each year, it is the responsibility of the Finance Committee to review the financial health of the organization and make a recommendation to the board if a change in dues rate is needed to support long-term viability. This is done in January of each year for the following year. In January 2022, the Finance Committee recommended the dues rate remains unchanged for 2023. The board voted to support this recommendation. Through proper financial stewardship, the board of the college has been able to hold dues rates, making 2023 the 8th year without a change in fees. While conducting a finance in terms of reference review, the recommendation to remove the role of treasurer was sought, as this role was more aligned with the association model of governance. The description of what the treasurer was responsible for was not what was occurring. The Finance Committee wanted to align bylaws with current practice. This meant the elimination of the treasurer role and movement of financial oversight being officially provided by the Finance Committee and the board, with operational activities being conducted by staff in Beige, our financial support company. Finally, I just wanted to say a thank you to our outgoing volunteers. Volunteers are core to our function. We want to take the opportunity to say thank you to those who have completed the terms in 2021. I also want to make a special mention that while Jennifer and Diana term on the board have been completed, they've both chosen to continue as volunteers in committee roles with the college, and we appreciate this very much. And I'll turn it back to Chrissy for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, I was going to get you to stay on for a minute or two, and we'll see if anyone has any questions for Julie. I believe this, I was going to say your slides will be available, but this whole thing is being recorded. So yes, your slides will be available. Are there any questions?
No, no questions.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you, Julie. Okay.
Sorry, a question just came through. Apologies. Spence Miller, why are we not having education seminars bi-yearly?
We will be. There's two that's planned. So there'll be one in the spring and one in the fall.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
We actually have, just on that note, we actually we'll be sending out a e-blast soon, but if you want to say the date, it's Saturday, October 15th, and we have a guest presenter from, I believe, Toronto, who will be speaking on social media use by regulated health professionals, pitfalls and challenges and opportunities.
And what
Is that
did you
in
do that?
person or virtually?
It will be virtual.
Perfect. All right. Moving along, 5.0, the annual reports. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for their hard work in developing their reports this year. Is there a mover to accept the reports en masse, excluding the financial reports?
Yep, I wish to make a motion to accept the reports en masse, excluding the financial reports.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenny. Is there a seconder?
It's Lisa. I second the motion.
Awesome. Thank you. It has been first and seconded the motion to accept the reports en masse, excluding the financial reports. Are there any questions on the chair and executive director's report, which is on page 6 to 8 of the annual report. No questions coming through, I'm assuming.
No.
Are there any questions on the remaining reports, excluding the financial reports? So that is the registrar report, page 9 to 14, and all the committee reports, which are page 27 to 31. We'll pause again here, see if anyone has any questions. All right, hearing no questions. Joanne, can you please launch the voting poll? The question is to accept the annual reports en masse, excluding the financial reports.
Okay, I'm going to close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Perfect. All right, motion carried. All right, 5.3 is our finances. So I'd now like to invite Monita Taylor from MMP to present the audited results for the college for 2021. These audited financial statements have already been presented to the board and approved at the main meeting, so no motions need to be made today. They can be found in the annual report, pages 15 to 24, but we'll go through it with Monita now. All right, Monita, you can take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having MNP join your meeting today. As Chrissy mentioned, my name is Monita Taylor. I'm an assurance partner with MNP, and I will walk us through the audited financial statements. I believe in your package, you'll find just before we get to the statement of financial position that you see on the screen right now, the independent auditor's report. So this is MNP's report on the financial statements of the college. And I'd like to note that this is what's considered a clean, unqualified report, which means, in our opinion, these financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with accounting standards for not-for-profit organization. The other thing you'll note on this page is that about halfway down the independent auditor's report, there's still a reference to the amalgamation, which happened in 2020, and that's because the 2020 year is the comparative figures that are presented in the audited financial statements. And this report is dated the date that the financial statements were accepted and approved by your board. So next we'll talk a bit about the statement of financial position, which we see on the screen here. So the top part of the statement of financial position outlines the assets of the organization. And you'll see that the overall assets of the organization have increased about 116,000 from 2020 to 2021. And this is largely because of the cash generated for the organization. So cash flow from operations increased this year by 104,000. And a portion of that cash was invested. So you'll also see an increase in the investments line under assets. Beneath the assets, we have liabilities of the organization. And again, the liabilities have increased this year. Two main reasons for that. You'll see there's a line there called deferred grant revenue. The organization received some funds from some provincial funding this year, and that funding is used for two specific purposes: the refresher program and the jurisprudence model. Both of those projects were started in 2021 but not completed, so the remaining balance of that grant revenue will be recognized in 2022. And also you'll see an increase in the deferred revenue line. I just want to note that the deferred revenue is the membership fees that are collected in 2021 for the 2022 year. And there was an increase in registration this year. The bottom part of the statement of financial position outlines the net assets of the organization between the various funds that the college has. So there's 4 different funds. These are described in more detail in note 3 to the financial statements, and we'll talk a bit about these funds when we get to the statement of net assets. So we can move over to the statement of operations. You're going to see the statement of operations has a little bit of a different format from the statement of financial position, and that's because it's in the columnar format. So for each fund of the organization that had actual activity in the year, it has its own column, and then we have a total column for 2021 compared to the total column of 2020. Most of the changes between 2020 and 2021 is because 2020 was a 10-month period and 2021 is a 12-month period. So most of the revenues and expenses have increased because for that very reason, 10 months versus 12 months. A couple things that don't align with that. Under revenues, you'll see the second line of revenues, the CAMRT dues. So the CAMRT dues were not collected this year, which means that the revenues have decreased, and also down in the expenses, the CAMRT dues expense is 0 as well. I'd also want to point out in revenues, registration fees have increased because of the 12 months this year versus 10 months last year, but also because of an increase in registration. And the government grants line there are the 2 programs that we just talked about, the funding received for the refresher program and the jurisprudence module. Down in expenses, again, the majority of the expenses have increased because of the 12 months versus the 10 months. A couple things that have decreased that stand out is the conferences line, and that's because there was the Atlantic Conference in 2020, not in 2021. And also the legal fees, and that's because in 2020 there were legal fees incurred because of the amalgamation of the organization. So overall, expenses have decreased, but that's mostly because, again, the CAMRT dues are 0. Most of the individual lines have actually increased because of the number of months of activity. So then the subtotal right there, oh, sorry, can we just go back to that screen one more? Yeah, sorry. You'll see the excess deficiency of revenues over expenses. So this is the operational activity line. So overall, operational profit this year of 78,000 compared to almost 60,000 last year. And then the last part of this statement, the other items, this takes into account the investment activity. So overall investment income this year of 16,000, but I want to point out that about 9,000 of that is unrealized because that's the fair market value bump of the investments year over year. So overall excess of 94,756. So we can move over to the statement of changes in net assets. So this is where we look at the activity for each of the funds. So again, these funds are described in detail in note 3 to the financial statements. And I guess I'd just like to point out that a not-for-profit organization can have profit and they can have net assets, but it's important to have a purpose for that. So this statement here really outlines the purpose of the funds that the organization holds for the future of the organization. So the operating fund is the yearly activity of the organization, so that's cleared to 0 at the end of the year. And then the operational profit is allocated for future purposes. So at the end of the year, the operational reserve fund has 109,000. And the purpose of the operational fund is to build to about 6 months of operating expenses to hold for future downturns that the organization might have to cover. The special project fund sits at 50, which is the cap for that fund. And the contingency fund sits at about 343,000. And that's really to put funds aside to support the complaints process of the organization. And then we have overall total net assets of the organization of just over 500,000. And the last statement to the financial statements is the statement of cash flows. So you see the top part of the statement of cash flows outlines the cash generated from operations in the year. And the first subtotal there shows that the operational cash flow generated this year of 104,000. And again, a portion of that operating cash flow was allocated to investments to invest for the future of the organization. And a small portion of that, about 5,000, was used for capital assets, which was largely for the Guild software for upgrades for different things. So overall, cash of the organization, 586,000 at the end of the year. Also included with the audited financial statements are the notes to the financial statements, and those outline the significant accounting policies that are used to record the different transactions in the organization, and those policies have remained consistent year over year. And again, note 3 to the financial statements outlining the purposes of the various funds that the organization holds. And I guess, any questions, I guess?
Yeah. Thank you, Manita. That was a good overview. I like how you help us understand what all those numbers mean. But yeah, we'll pause here to see if there are any questions on these documents. Awesome. No questions coming through, Joanne?
No, nothing's come through.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you again, Manita.
Thank you very much for having us join you today. Enjoy the rest of the AGM.
Thank you, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
See you guys.
Okay. So now Julie will present our last financial document, which is page 25 in the annual report, and that shows the 2021 budget, as long as alongside the actuals and the variances, as well as the 2022 budget. Julie?
Yes, thanks again. So I would just wanted to look to see how what we budget compares to what we actually end up with at the end of the year. So looking first at the income line, we can see, just 2 seconds here. When we look at the income line, we can actually see that variance of actual to budget is only 1.38%. So we actually brought in at 1.38% more than what we budgeted. It's fairly accurate on that line. The variance rose to 8.2% when we included on budgeted items that were added in. These monies were received from several areas of income that cannot be relied upon and thus are not part of the budget process. So overall, we brought in about 8% higher than what the base budget was. When we move to expenses, there are several notable variances here. Amortization, this was budgeted just off the computer equipment that we had purchased, but as a result of the audit, the website and registration platform upgrades were moved here as well, resulting in a significant increase. So moving forward, when we do large-scale changes to our Guild platform or websites or things like that that are considered base operational requirements, they will have to be moved into this category and reflect better for amortization. Gifts and honorariums was higher because during 2021, there was a policy change to recognize all departing board members with a gift of appreciation. And we had co-chairs for a period, resulting in 2 honorariums being paid out to the chair position instead of 1. For banking fees, we erroneously budget Pluto fees with banking fees. So we estimated it to be $600 a year, but these fees are actually, the Pluto fees are actually recorded separately under office expenses. However, if you actually put the Pluto and the banking fees together, they are just over 600. So it's actually a fairly accurate estimate. So banking fees, sorry, back one up there, I missed one. Banking fee, yes. Insurance, we moved away from using CMRT provided insurance. And this resulted in bulk insurance. When you buy it through CMRT, it's bulk insurance, so it allows for a lower rate. But we felt the board felt this was a conflict to be purchasing our board insurance through the National Association, so we moved to our own insurance provider. Additionally, we also added cybersecurity insurance to our coverage, which we did not have previously. And we also saw in general insurance premium prices rose in 2021. Conference and national meetings were canceled or held virtually, so costs were reduced here. And management fees, this is your fees for investments. They're really buried in your investment statements, and we actually just missed out on budgeting for this in 2021. Going forth, we will be adding this as a budget item in future years. Professional fees, this includes your accounting, auditing, and consultants. The increased cost was related to the audit costs that were higher than expected because it included setup fees, as last year was our first audit. We can expect that this will actually be above budget again this year because it was discovered that the college was not compliant with tax return requirements. We were under the impression that through 2016 and 2019, we were not required to actually file a not-for-profit return as long as we had done a review. That was not accurate. So we're in the process of doing tax returns for 2016 to 19 to become compliant. Special projects were lower than expected as all payments related to projects were not made. So this the jurisprudence and the refresher programs are underway, but not all payments have been made for them, such as some changes to our registration platform to accommodate an exam. Licensing and fees, credit card fees were twice what we expected, and we still have a third of our registrants choosing to pay by credit card and just haven't had the uptake that we expected with payroll deduction. So in the future, we'll have to account for that. And dues and subscriptions, this was off because of the change to where things were allocated. So when we talked about things moving where amortization was off, because some items we didn't put under capital expenses, this is where some of the things on subscription moved to, was up into the amortization area. So it comes in lower, as well there was a couple subscriptions such as InDesign that we dropped this year. So resulting in lower amounts in this area. And we don't budget for anything to do with investments. So again, they show up as nothing in our original budget. What is very noticeable, and which was mentioned by Manita as well, is that in 2020 and 2021, we had a substantial surplus. We wanted to outline how these surpluses came to be and demonstrate that they are related to 2 principal causes, COVID-19 and grants. If we look at 2020, we had a surplus of more than 69,000, and in 2021, more than 95,000. But if we look at unexpected income in 2020, that was we received over 33,000 from the merger with NSCMIRTP, and there was also a federal grant received of 4,000. These are both one-time sources of income that will not be repeated and could not be predicted at the time of setting the budget. The following year, we received 37,000 in grants for the development and delivery of a jurisprudence and the 4 refresher programs. These grants were applied for and received after the budget was set, and again, are not grants that we will receive in the future. Additionally, there was 20,000 received in interest over the 2 years. Interest cannot be budgeted, as some years we will have good interest returns and other years we'll actually lose money. Between these 2 years, there was a total of more than $95,000 in unexpected income. Surplus was further increased due to lack of travel secondary to COVID, resulting in approximately $40,000 not being spent over those 2 years. Together, taking all this into account, had COVID not been a reality and had we not had the unexpected income, our actual surplus would have been less than $15,000 each year. Given each year we must replenish monies removed from reserve funds, and at this stage we are actually still in the process of building these funds. We need to have some surplus each year to address this. We expect these small unexpected sources of income, such as interest and refresher programs, to help address this. We do not expect on a going forward basis to see such large surpluses. So if there's any questions related to this.
Thank you, Julie, for that surplus breakdown. I'm sure that was one of the questions.
Okay, nothing's come through.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Joanne. All right, thank you, Julie. All right, we're getting there.
Great. I'm obviously too quick closing these questions. One's come through.
Perfect.
It's great that NSCMIRTP were able to take advantage of grants they take time and effort to obtain. So more of a statement than a question.
Awesome. Yeah, that is a very large amount, almost $38,000 in grants we've received. And yeah, thanks to Julie for outsourcing those and doing all the applications for sure. All right, 6.0 on the agenda, election results. So a call for nominations was sent out twice in the fall of 2021 and no names were put forward, unfortunately. After the nominations window closed, a call was put out for appointment to the board. Jason Shepard and Lisa Bonin submitted required information and met criteria for nomination. So the board appointed them in December of 2021 and they took office on February 1st, 2022. So we'd like to welcome Lisa and Jason to the board, as well as thank the outgoing board members, Jennifer Cressabuk and Diana Shepard, for their many years of service. And yeah, like Julie mentioned, thank you also for staying on as volunteers. All right, so no motions needed there because we already did that. 6.2, appointment of accounting firm. The NSCMIRTP Finance Committee has made the recommendations to the board for the continued appointment of the firm of MNP to perform the financial audit for 2022. The board voted and approved on this motion at a recent board meeting. So again, no vote needed here. 6.3, joint stocks. I feel like there's a slide for this. As an association, NSCMIRT was incorporated through membership with joint stocks. It was through this incorporation that we attained our official recognition as an organization. As a regulatory college, it is now inappropriate for us to belong to joint stocks as we get our authority through our legislative act. Regulators like the college are not eligible for membership with joint stocks. So we have notified them of the change in our status and stopped paying our annual fees. However, we still have not been removed from their registry. NSCMIRT members need to vote to cancel our membership with joint stocks. Therefore, we're going to do a poll in a minute here, and we are asking that past NSCMIRT members only vote on this next motion. Is there a mover to rescind the NSCMIRT membership with joint stocks?
Jason Shepard, I make the motion.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Is there a seconder?
Lisa, I second the motion.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there any debate or questions about this motion? Maybe we'll do the poll at the same time we wait for questions. Is that fair? So a reminder, it's only past NSCMIRTP members only. Please vote to rescind membership with joint stocks. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions about that. I'm doing so well remembering to vote myself. Are there any questions coming through, Joanne?
No, I'll close it shortly because obviously it's not going to be everyone that votes, is it?
No.
Okay, I'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Awesome. I appreciate your countdown because I also put my coffee down and get ready again. All right, looks like motion has passed. Thank you. Majority. But yeah, still, if you do have any questions about that motion, feel free to shout them out. Which brings us to 7.0, the adjournment for today. Thank you all for attending and for your participation. I would like to thank Ryan Baxter from McGinnis Cooper and everyone else for their assistance today. There's nothing coming through, Joanne?
Yes, I've
Yep.
got some questions.
Perfect. Give her.
Can the association investigate the possibility of liability insurance? NSHA has a partnership with Johnson Insurance.
So can we hold that till the general question portions, unless it relates to?
All right, yeah, I've got one about joint stocks. How will rescinding from stocks affect current NSCMIRTP members?
It won't.
Yeah, go for it,
It
Julie.
won't. It's a business. It's on the business side of things. It's going to affect our how we're seen as a not-for-profit and where we get our regulatory authority from. So we'll be a not-for-profit, but not under an association model, under a regulatory model. So it may affect things for us on a business side and applying for some grants and things like that in the future, but it won't directly affect the registrants.
Mm-hmm. Plus, NSCMIRTP isn't an entity anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it won't impact either. NSSDMS has already done. They were also part of joint stocks. We got the last membership list of NSSDMS and did an email out to that membership list, and they've already voted. So this is the most expedient way, because for some reason, when you ask to, even when you stop paying your dues and ask to be removed, they don't seem to remove it. So we're going through a more laborious process to actually force our removal from the list.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, awesome. I declare this second annual general meeting of the Nova Scotia College of Medical Imaging and Radiation Therapy Professionals now closed, 11:59. Thank you for all who attended. There was about 120 of us, so that's awesome. And yeah, done deal. I'd now like to move into the next portion of today's webinar, I guess, and that is the open Q&A period. Ryan Baxter, our legal representative, will be staying on for this portion of the meeting to address any legal questions individuals may have. For those just joining this portion of our meeting, I'd like to review how questions will be asked and answered during this session. Due to the number of individuals online, now it's about 115 of us, everyone has been muted except for those mics for the board and the legal. If you have a question, please enter your last name first at the beginning of your question, or make sure it appears. Sometimes it does appear for you. If it's a long question, just type in incoming and hit submit and then start typing away, just so we know to wait for your question. If you reach the max allowed characters, type in ... and then we know that there's still more coming. Of course, the total time required to read the question must not exceed 3 minutes. We recommend pre-typing your questions and then copying and pasting them in. Questions may not be answered in order, and identical questions may be grouped together. And please note, we will not be using the raise hand function of this portion of the meeting either. Questions will be read aloud and answered by a board member, ED, or myself, or a committee chair. We encourage individuals to bring forth any questions or concerns and are reminded to phrase it in a concise, professional manner. Questions containing profanity, personal attacks, or otherwise unprofessional will not be addressed at all. The minutes of this AGM and a transcript of this full Q&A forum will be posted to the website within 30 days. Joanne, go ahead with the first question.
Okay. So going back to that question from Spence Miller, can the association investigate the possibility of liability insurance? NSHA has a partnership with Johnson Insurance.
I think Julie can answer that. We do have liability insurance. Is that right?
No, but we don't. Yeah, but we won't be looking at selling liability because it's a conflict. That would be an association-driven function, and that's why CMRT does exactly that. Has an agreement with BMS Insurance for providing of liability. There's no condition from our perspective of who you get your insurance from. So if another third party decided to offer that to its members, like unions or whatever, then that can happen. But we will not be selling insurance.
Right. Sorry, I was thinking of that we have like board of directors insurance, like
Yes,
ourselves.
Yeah,
but...
yeah, we have proper insurance coverage, but we will not be in the business of offering insurance to our registrants for PLI.
Yep. Yeah, that's an association role for sure. All right, next question.
Spence Miller, why does a 40-year technologist have to have 30 CEC when they have continued education throughout their career?
The CPD credits are the same across the board, whether you are a casual or like a long-term employee. But yeah, it's just so that everyone's on the same page. And as we all know, technology and information advances drastically very quickly. So yeah, we're all expected to maintain the same requirements for registration.
Rebecca, do you want to address that at all as the credentials chair?
I would just echo what Chrissy said. You know, we just want to ensure the same level of competence across all techs and sonographers. And it's true that you do continue learning throughout your career. And that's why our CPD portfolio is so broad, so that we can capture that. If you're doing education as part of your job, a lot of that you can plug into the CPD portfolio. So yeah.
Okay, and just a comment really, Spence Miller, we need more education sessions directed to radiology.
So that's something that the associations will be your resource for, CMRT and Sonography Canada. So please feel free to reach out to those. The CMRT does have an Atlantic chapter now, so you can follow them on Facebook or message any of those 3 organizations directly. They're the ones that take care of the education topics and stuff like that, and they would love to hear your ideas, for sure.
Okay, question from Jameson. With such an annual and cumulative surplus, shouldn't the member fees be reduced?
Yes. No, there's no plan to reduce the member fees. Julie's breakdown of why we have such a surplus the last 2 years was well explained, and the budget for running a college is much more than a budget for running an association, and so we have no plans to reduce dues in the future.
Question from Curry. Could this plenary and AGM be earlier in the spring when the weather isn't as nice? This seems important for a work-life balance for me.
In fact, we do lose a lot of attendees due to the nice weather. I think historically we've always had it in June because it has to be a certain time.
It allows us to get the audits done. So that's the issue. Our year end is December 31st. You don't close out your year end until sometime in February to have your transactions through from all your transactions through from 2021. So then you have to bring an auditor in, and it's an extensive process to go through an audit and get their audit reports. So as you can see, the audit was actually only approved by the board in May. We literally had approval of the board the 30 days prior to when I had to actually get notification to the registrants with the annual report. So even in June right now, that's tight. Like we're just getting that report out in time to give 30 days notice and with the annual report. So yes, I agree. It'd be nicer to do it earlier in the year, but we're constrained by having to have all the documents together to actually give to the registrants.
Mm-hmm. And now it's only a half a day event where historically it was a full day or sometimes even a weekend. So it's less of your weekend that we're taking up. So, but thank you for attending.
Question from Smith. Why are only a portion of members checked for obtaining 30 CPD credits?
I'm not sure what the question is exactly. Can they clarify that? Can you read it one more time also?
Why are only a portion of members checked for obtaining 30 CPD credits?
Right.
About the audit?
Yeah, the audit. Because we have over 700 members, so it would be very time consuming to go through all 700. So there was just a randomized 10% that get audited every year. And
I'd like to add to that. Actually, everyone's checked for the 30 credits. We do two separate levels of auditing. The first is the computer just generates the list of anybody who doesn't have 30 credits submitted. So everyone, or the prorated amount if you weren't a registrant for the full 24 months. But we do that first. So anybody who doesn't have the required number of credits, they're going to find themselves automatically put into the full audit. Anyone who does have their credits submitted, then there's a random sampling of those individuals to actually go in and do a detailed check of their submissions. And that's pretty standard. You're not going to check every single person. It's very time consuming. So it's a random audit basis that you get that full review of your portfolio.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right. The computer recognizes anyone that hasn't completed their full thing, so that it automatically flags anyone that hasn't submitted their portfolio in full. So that's good.
Okay, there's nothing else. Oh, yeah, one more. This is from Nicholson. If I have only been a member since Jan 2021, do I need the full 30 credits?
I believe they are prorated. Julie, I think January might be a different, I can't remember the cutoff. I feel like it's May, isn't it?
It's prorated by the number of months you're in. It's right. If they go online and look at the CPD portfolio, it actually lists how many months and how many credits you need. If they go and look at their CPD profile, it actually should have a prorated amount at the top, not the 30 credits required. If it doesn't, then they just reach out to me directly and I'll sort it out for them.
Perfect.
Right, Fader, thank you to the board and staff of the NSCMIRTP. It needs to be recognised that finding volunteers is difficult. The transition to the college has taken effort, and operating in this current COVID situation has had challenges.
Perfect, thank you. No other questions coming through?
As soon as I say no, one clicks on.
Okay.
The minute.
So yeah, back to the CPD portfolio. I believe there's a webinar tutorial on our website. If people haven't been in there yet. Maybe we can post that to the Facebook page again also. It's just like a step-by-step on how to enter all your credits and fill in your portfolio.
Got a question from Connell. Are casuals required to maintain 30 credits?
Yes.
It's about competency, not about the number of hours worked, right? So CPD is about remaining engaged and current to your practice. And working less hours doesn't mean that the public should expect less from you. So it is about engagement and maintaining currency. If there's any argument around casuals or less people who are working less hours, would be that they would need more CPD, not less. But that's not a plan in the future. The plan is to keep it equal for all registrants.
Mm-hmm. Remember, it's 30 credits every 2 years, so you've got lots of time to build those up. They add up pretty quickly.
There's a question, do we get credits for this webinar?
Yes. So the AGM itself is an hour, so that's 1 credit. And if you attended the plenary session earlier, that's another hour. So you can submit for 2 credits for the full day.
Okay. Bennett asked a question, which I can answer, about getting certificates. Yes, I will be sending out certificates next week. I will look at the registration document and who's attending, and I'll email them directly to you. So that will be done next week.
Perfect. Thanks, Joanne.
Rebecca, did you want to talk, just give them a quick heads up on what they could expect through the audit and review process this fall, since it's coming up?
Yep, sure. So as many of you know, the current CPD cycle is going to be ending this year on October 31st, after which we're going to begin the audit process. Just as a reminder, you will have to submit your portfolio prior to the October 31st deadline. So the computer doesn't automatically submit your portfolio once the deadline's been met. If you have your 30 credits and you don't want to make any more edits to your portfolio, just make sure you go in and actually submit it online. If you don't actually hit submit, then the computer will see that as an outstanding portfolio in which you're going to get placed into an audit. So just a reminder to make sure that you do actually go in and submit your portfolio, even though you might have already met your 30 credits. For audits, what's going to happen is the computer, kind of how we talked about earlier, is going to check every registrant's CPD portfolio to ensure that they have the 30 credits. Anyone who has outstanding credits and hasn't met their minimum, the computer is going to automatically place them into the audit pool. So anyone that's under that 30 minimum is going to be audited. Our goal is to audit a total up to about 10% of our total registrant pool. So like we mentioned earlier, the computer is also going to randomly select a portion of people who are not deficient and have actually submitted their full portfolio. So if you are selected for an audit, what's going to happen is you're going to be notified via email the first week of November after the 2-year cycle has closed. If you are audited, a college staff member is going to review your CPD portfolio, and then any portfolio that requires a further review is going to be sent to the credentials committee. So during the audit, we're going to be verifying both your CPD and your currency hours, as well as ensuring that at least 50% of your CPD activities are verifiable with evidence to show that you've truly completed the activity. If you do receive an email that you're going to be audited, it's going to say one of 3 things. It's either going to say that your portfolio was found to be complete with no outstanding requirements, which means that your audit was successful and there's no further action required. Or it could say that you do have outstanding CPD credits and you're going to be contacted with an email that states the number of credits that you're outstanding and minimum timelines and how to submit them. Or it could state that there is another deficiency identified. Again, you'll be contacted outlining the specific deficiency and the required actions to correct the deficiency and the timeline that you'll have to submit it by. If you do fall into any of the latter categories there, that you have outstanding credits or deficiencies, the college is going to work with you and assist you to help formulate a plan to meet the CPD requirements prior to our December 31st license renewal deadline.
And just
Okay,
to
I've
add,
got a question from Helen. Sorry.
I just want to add two things before we move on. So, Rebecca mentioned submission of portfolios. Definitely you need to do that, but please make sure you don't submit until you are sure that you don't want to make any further edits to that portfolio. Once it's submitted, it can't be unsubmitted without additional costs to us. So we'd like to have you make sure that you are only submitting once you're ready for that. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was there's about 35 of you out there that have submitted something under research or education, which is pending review for credits. They have, we have pulled everybody's name that is affected by this. We are in the process of reviewing them, and we expect by the end of June to be able to email you directly with how many credits you will receive once they allow us to do that adjustment in the back end, which unfortunately at this moment we still can't do, but at least that way you will know how many credits you are going to receive for those activities. So you'll be getting a direct email in the next few weeks if that pertains to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. Joanne, you had a question?
Yeah, from Melanson. We all have stress at our profession, so why introduce more by requiring out of work obligations on our supposed downtime?
I know it's something that we talked about a lot since we've become a college, but it's part of the responsibility now because we have a responsibility to public safety. So we're not unique. Every college, every regulator has these requirements for continuing professional development of their registrants. So it's something that we do so that we know that we are competent and our coworkers are competent and the public is very safe from us, I guess. But yeah, and learning new things is very exciting actually. So it actually, you know, sometimes it reduces stress, right? Especially if you get to travel. Are there any other questions coming through, Joanne?
Sort of. So basically, there's people that need to leave now. So just wanted to say that it is being recorded, isn't it? And it'll be posted to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. But yeah, in case it's you, Rebecca, that has to leave, I just want to thank you for your dedication. I could tell you were at work, and thanks for showing up. Yes. And Jacqueline has also been logged in this whole time while she's mid-travel, so thank you as well for your dedication today. No other questions coming through?
No. No.
You can definitely give it another couple minutes.
Okay.
Still nothing coming through.
No.
All right. What time is it? I have myself on the full screen mode. It's 12:20. I feel like that's about it. We've definitely got quite a few that have dropped off already, so I guess it's time to sign off. Thank you very much, Ryan Baxter, our legal representative, for being with us today. You're always needed, but we didn't get to see or hear you this time, but that's okay. Nothing else? I'm trying to drag this out, Joanne, for you. But...
No, nothing's coming through.
Okay, perfect. As always, please feel free to shoot any questions or concerns you have to the college email. That's info@nscmirtp.ca. We'll definitely welcome any questions and comments. Also, there should still be site ambassadors at each institution where you can, they're like our link to us, to you, and they should be posting information around your departments. And if you are lacking that, reach out to us and we will find someone to do that for you. I guess that's it. Well, thank you again, everyone, for participating in this. It's a very important part of our governance, and we're happy to be here for you and answer your questions and feed you information. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Bye. So we're going to take a quick little break now. The AGM will start at